Romans 7, 10 through 18. And I'm going to give a bit of an archetypal read on some of these so you can understand basically what they would mean psychologically, okay? So Romans 7, 10 through 18. 10. And the commandment which was ordained to life I found to be unto death. For sin, which is ignorance of one's own weakness and guilt, which psychological complexes and the shadow are the embodiment of, for sin taking occasion by the commandment deceived me, and by it slew me. The commandment or law here would be the force of the archetype, which is one-sided and rigid. Wherefore the law is holy. And I'm going to put a Proto-Indo-European root in there so that we can understand holy a little bit more. And the commandment holy and just and good. So holy equals Proto-Indo-European root Kailo, Kailo, whole, uninjured, of good omen. Words such as holy, holiday, wholesome, hail, which is a patterning force called Hegelaz in the Elder Futhark, okay? I'll put something up about that. Halloween and health come from this root. So 13, was then that which is good made death unto me? God forbid, but sin that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good. That sin, ignorance, right, by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not, but what I hate, that I do. 16. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. So it's an amazing archetype, as all are, and can be fascinating. Fascinating being the underlying word where you get overtaken. Okay? 17. Now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Our own shortcomings, born of repression and ignorance of our complexes and shadow, are the problem, in that we will claim the law or archetype without fixing our relationship to sin or willful ignorance and repression, which is our initial relationship with the shadow and complexes, etc. And the psyche is as well too, okay? 18, for I know that in me, that is in my flesh, right, dwelleth no good thing, for to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. And here's me again. It is mere animal nature to follow one's instincts, but instincts are informed or inspired from an archetypal level, which is a blind for most in our society, who mindlessly follow the impulses of such without contemplation or application of foresight to instinctual actions. If unaddressed, this repression fosters the autonomy of complexes, which are emotionally charged patterns in the psyche that disrupt equilibrium and manifest as flow breakers. Flow is an idea that was put together by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and when all is said and done, in Carl Jung's alchemical psychology, I think that he presaged this whole thing, like he presaged the theory of flow, but really made it complex to get into, okay, and to understand. The Sigma male, in his quest for independence, may unintentionally, unconsciously create rigid defenses, isolating these complexes like thorny seeds buried deep within the rich soil of the shadow, that when grown to full capacity can limit and seriously disrupt his psychological growth. I would like to talk about now the Sigma male and his natural relation to the flow state. which I mentioned earlier, which is a definite plus. First, I'll posit a definition of terms. Autotelic means having a purpose in and of itself or existing for its own sake. We talk about the autotelic personality when talking about getting into the flow state. It's prerequisite in most cases, okay? It can be used to describe a person, activity, or work of art. An autotelic person is, for example, someone who does things for their own sake rather than for some external goal. An autotelic activity is, for example, an activity that is done for the experience of it rather than for any other reason. An autotelic work of art is, for example, a work of art that exists for its own purpose rather than to convey a story or a message, and that relies heavy on personal subjective interpretation of such a piece of art. Okay, this highly important term derives from the mid 19th century from auto, self, meaning self. Okay, and that's from the Latin and or Greek rather, and Greek telos, end, and then plus IC, autotelic. Okay? The Sigma male often embodies the autotelic personality, which thrives on intrinsic motivation and is well suited for achieving flow states, as described by late Hungarian American psychologist Mihai Robert Csikszentmihalyi. Okay? However, unresolved inner conflicts can act as disruptive forces, breaking flow. Anybody that's been in the flow state can attest to the fact that if they're triggered or something just takes them out of the situation, makes them mad or whatever, their consciousness starts going somewhere else and they lose the flow state. Okay? Repressed shadow materials may surface as intrusive thoughts, loneliness, or emotional turbulence. As Edinger reminds us, the autonomous complex operates outside of conscious control, sabotaging the individual's intentions. While the Sigma male values independence, unchecked repression, the shadow aspects that have not been made conscious risk feeding the very complexes that lead one to the allure of the Sigma male archetype, and also the identification with it that undermines what they wish to foster, their further autonomy. So now let's look a bit deeper at the trap of rigidity, which is no doubt going to form in the Sigma male mind state due to his one-sided adherence to this archetype. It's basically unavoidable. The Sigma male's rejection of the collective can lead to unconscious rigidity, a refusal to engage meaningfully with the relational and emotional aspects of the psyche. James Hollis warns, what we avoid owns us, what we resist persists and often takes control. This rigidity reinforces psychological complexes and limits the Sigma male's ability to adapt and grow. True individuation requires a balanced approach, one that recognizes the value of societal norms without succumbing totally to conformity. Now let's drop a bit of a red pill moment if you haven't already picked up on what I'm laying down as we speak about how the Sigma male can begin the individuation process. To overcome these challenges, the Sigma male must take deliberate steps towards integration and wholeness. Sigma males need to take an awareness to the repression they are licensing upon themselves. Jung teaches, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Oh, this just happened to me. This just keeps happening to me again and again and again and again, and it's all their fault. No, it's your fault if it keeps on happening. There are things in my life right now that keep on happening that's like, okay, this is a blind to what's going on in the unconscious, which is so vast, you're always going to find new things to work on, okay? The Sigma male must confront the parts of the self they have repressed, bringing them carefully into conscious awareness. And their romance with isolation is a perfect catalyst towards this and other endeavors which will be explained. Engaging with the shadow. Integration of the shadow involves recognizing and accepting disowned parts of the psyche. As Edinger explains, To integrate the shadow is to humanize ourselves. This step allows the Sigma male to reconnect with aspects of the self that have been denied in their quest for independence. And it helps to look into what Robert Moore called the little s system self, which Jung sectored into quadrants, and which Moore called the king, queen, magician, and warrior. For example, Jung gave us the idea of the quadrants and the personality of thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Three sectors of which you will operate well in. One you are great at and operate primarily through. The second is about as good. The third, even less accessible than the second, but consciously utilizable. And the fourth is almost a total blind for you. And thus, it is a point of salvation when you have integrated it, made it conscious, is what that means. That shadow quadrant will be the point of the greatest and most powerful release in your life journey. This is usually the quadrant we have been pushed away from in life due to circumstances we usually don't want to talk about, trauma, and we also willingly repress it and suffer for our unrelatedness to it, if we are truthful. Okay? Balancing flow and relationships. While the Sigma male excels in self-motivation, cultivating meaningful relationships can provide the emotional grounding needed to sustain flow. Hollis notes, James Hollis, we are relational creatures, and through relationship, we come to know ourselves. Reevaluating the collective conscious is the next portion, okay? Rather than outright rejecting societal norms, the Sigma male can approach them critically, adopting what serves individuation and discarding what doesn't. This discernment prevents rigidity that leads to repression. So that part about taking what's usable and throwing out what's not here in the last thing that I just read, right, goes back to Bruce Lee's whole idea of taking the techniques that work for you, throwing out the techniques that do not, right? And there's a book that I read a long time ago because I'm a martial artist at the end of the day, right? It's by Kenji Tokitsu called The Inner Art of Karate. I'll throw the book up there. And it's about more than karate. It conveys concepts that extend far beyond martial arts and into life, but how it applies here with what we're talking about, it applies to the fact that martial arts, for example, relies on forms and knowledge of forms for use in offense and knowledge of the same for use in defense, meaning you are using shape against shape, frame against frame, and one ultimately negating the other until the battle culminates. It's the same thing if you recognize the archetypal nature and their structures, and also know other forms of archetypal nature and structures, and know how to interact with those things in such a way as to negate one and overcome the other within your psyche. Meaning you have to know about these things in order to have the defense, in order to have the proper offense, well, what you're going to put forth in a situation so that you can use and harness archetypal energy for your own personal endeavors, okay? So one of my first jiu-jitsu teachers was Eddie Bravo. I trained with him at a place called Legends MMA, right? And his whole style was put together based on, from what he was talking about to most of his students, that Bruce Lee's idea of taking what's usable and throwing out what's not. And what he did was take Jean-Jacques Machado's form of martial arts of jiu-jitsu, right? And he added a bunch of stuff that he tweaked from back in his wrestling days, okay? So the thing is he created a more vast jiu-jitsu style with more moves and moves that a lot of people didn't see. So he was winning a lot of competitions at a higher rate because people didn't know these techniques, the forms, the symbols that he was throwing out there. They didn't know how to throw the opposite symbol up because they didn't know what that symbol was to begin with. You see what I'm saying? So symbol sets are important. Okay? Understanding mythological stories is important. Archetypes are very, very important if you want a roadmap to the psyche, or if you want to be able to pinpoint certain areas of the psyche which you can get lost in. It's a vast, gigantic soup which is bigger than the ego. The ego, it can be hopelessly swallowed up by the unconscious, as many times it is when individuals are exhibiting neurosis, when they're fragmenting and losing it. You know what I mean? The unconscious has swallowed them up. Okay, so when I learned his Eddie Bravo style, like I wasn't a black belt in this style, right? Not even a blue belt. But when I learned a lot of the good moves that I chose to take into more simple Gracie type styles of jujitsu, more older styles of jujitsu, I found that by being able to switch between styles, I was winning a lot of matches. I was beating a lot of people, and giving a lot of people more problems than they should have had. You see what I'm saying? So broadening the consciousness through the application to archetypes and through mapping out the psyche will allow you to do that on that level and plane. Okay? So now to our conclusion, the final step, at least for me and maybe for you after ingesting and sorting through the theory embedded within this material, is to transcend the Sigma male archetype and even to integrate it. Remember, what we allow ourselves to be dissolved in is larger than us. This pertains to groups and ideas and even persons. Haven't you ever been lost, consumed in, or by the personality of another? Once you have come to a point in realization on the ideal or group or person for that matter, you can go no further, and this can be painful in some cases. Read about Jung's breaking away from Freud. That is a perfect case and example of leaving a group container for true individuation. Okay? The Sigma male, by integrating the shadow and engaging with archetypes, by learning about mythologies of vast cultures and recognizing the similar patterns underlying them, absorbing knowledge of various symbol systems I've spoken of in many of my videos on this channel, for instance, can begin to move beyond the limitations of their type, because they can then see more, losing their narrowness of vision, their blindness, okay? This journey requires cultivating the ego self-axis, which bridges individuality and universality, connecting one who is lost in the varying illusions of the world with consciousness to an ever-informing and anchoring source, ultimately enabling a deeper connection to both the collective unconscious and the self. As Jung reminds us, individuation does not shut one out from the world, but rather gathers the world to oneself. He didn't say rather, but gathers the world to oneself. A final note on the terminology of integration, as it is a heavy theme, if one takes the red pill on this issue, okay? Carl Jung believed that balancing the opposing forces of the psyche, thus creating equilibrium, was the key to integrating the conscious and unconscious mind. The process of integrating the shadow can lead to greater healing and integrity in relationships, as well as a deeper sense of freedom and vitality. In order to leave you with some starting points on the idea of integration, some key points of shadow integration would include self-awareness, recognizing and acknowledging the existence of the shadow, understanding and managing the shadow, bringing the hidden parts of the self into conscious awareness allows for more effective understanding and management. Some techniques used in Jungian therapy, which I would suggest reading as many books as you can on such subjects, include dream analysis, active imagination, archetypal exploration, shadow work, symbolic expression, amplification, and the understanding and conscious interaction with transference and countertransference. The Sigma male, as a gateway to individuation, a psychological exploration is what I call this next portion here, okay? The truth is that Sigma males, as a contemporary archetype, act as a great potential entry point to Jungian individuation. The Sigma male type, while focused on autonomy and independence, can evolve into a deeper psychological and even spiritual individual, adding a humane sense of stability to their sense of autonomy and independence. I believe that this archetype is a firm stepping stone towards the ultimate goal of individuation. So, here's just some information on some of the stelas that I'm going to use, which are from the Rosarian Philosophorum, okay? Read The Practice of Psychotherapy. C.G. Jung, okay, is the author of this book, for more detailed information on the stelas of the Rosarian Philosophorum, as we will use the imagery of the stelas to mark the transformation of the Sigma male into his freedom. So, Rosarian Philosophorum picture 1 is the one I'm going to use on this one, okay? The Sigma male as the starting point, shadow work in the personal unconscious. The Sigma male begins as someone consciously striving for independence, rejecting societal norms and external validation. While this independence is admirable, it often comes at the cost of repression. So shadow work begins. The Sigma male confronts aspects of the shadow and does so in the realm of the personal conscious, often aware of its deeper roots in the collective unconscious and the realm of the archetypes. So he's basically working in an area that he has no understanding for, no map, no knowledge of, okay? Traits like rejecting vulnerability or avoiding social hierarchies may highly indicate a reflection upon one's disowned parts of the self. What we don't wish to be, what we avoid, what we vehemently push away, lets us know about our complexes and our shadow, okay? The more that we push those things away, the more resistance that we show to those things, okay? The biggest blind, unawareness of the archetypes in the Sigma male, okay? At this stage, the Sigma male is likely unaware that unresolved psychological complexes, for example, struggles with intimacy, power, and belonging, are rooted in archetypal dynamics, and depending upon how deeply rooted these complexes are, we have various heightened degrees of hidden turmoil and suffering. This phase marks an entry-level confrontation with the psyche, but it is just the beginning. So Rosarian Philosophorum picture 2 is what I'm going to throw up here on this one. Awareness of the collective consciousness and its effects. As the Sigma male evolves in the process towards individuation, they begin to recognize that their psychological struggles are not just personal, but also influenced by societal norms and values. And Rosarian Philosophorum picture number 3 is going to go up here. Interplay between shadow and the collective consciousness. They realize their shadow is shaped by the collective consciousness which pre-exists their shadow itself, and which concept sociologist Durkheim described as the shared beliefs and morals of society. The Sigma male starts to see that outright rejecting societal norms can inadvertently reinforce their social repression and their very own psychological repressions, strengthening psychological complexes. Rosarian Philosophorum picture number 4. I'm going to throw that up there. Complexes as gateways to archetypes. Each psychological complex, such as an abandonment complex, ties back to an archetypal core. For example, the orphan, the warrior, the king. These archetypes reside in the collective unconscious, connecting personal struggles to universal human experiences. This is the turning point where the Sigma male begins to transcend their purely individualistic mindset, moving towards deeper integration. Rosarian Philosophorum picture 4. I'm going to throw that back up there again. okay? Moving towards the ego self-access is the next step, integrated archetypal dynamics, okay? In Jungian terms, the ego self-access represents the conscious alignment between the ego, the I, and the self, the totality of the psyche. At this stage, the Sigma male begins to cultivate this connection. Recognizing the archetypal realm, the Sigma male acknowledges that their psychological patterns are tied to universal archetypes then, which they must integrate into their personality. For example, integrating the warrior archetype might help the Sigma male balance interdependence with relational courage. This phase requires a conscious relationship with and to the collective unconscious. So there's a learning curve, is basically what this is saying for the Sigma male. Building the ego self-axis. The ego self-axis provides a conscious bridge between individuality and universality. This allows the Sigma male to reconcile their autonomy with the greater whole of life, moving beyond rigid independence. Transcending the Sigma male identity. At this stage, the Sigma male type becomes a stepping stone, not a fixed identity. They transcend the archetype, achieving a balance between individuality and meaningful participation in the world around them. Rosarum Philosophorum Picture 5 will describe this portion of the steps in becoming that this individual is taking now, okay? So just to recap the aforementioned, we will embark upon the hierarchical escalation of the Sigma male type. Now, I always try to tell you what I told you before, tell it to you again, repeat it again, so that we can get it down a little bit better. This is going to be a little bit of a truncated version of what I just spoke to you, okay? So just to recap the aforementioned, we will embark on the hierarchical escalation of the Sigma male type. The step-by-step transformation of the Sigma male into an individuated being would roughly comprise these steps. Step 1, entry-level Sigma male. Rejects societal norms and focuses on autonomy. Begins to confront the shadow but remains unaware of its archetypal and collective dimensions. Rosarian Philosophorum 2. And the one previous to that would be 1, okay? Step 2, awareness of the collective consciousness. Recognizes that societal norms influence the shadow and complexes. Begins to understand that complexes are tied to archetypal cores in the collective unconscious, okay? Rosarian Philosophorum 3 will go up here. Step 3 is archetypal integration here for the Sigma male, okay? That's moving on the path towards individuation. He engages with the archetypes consciously, integrating them into his psyche. He develops the ego self-axis, balancing individuality with universality. Rosarum Philosophorum Picture 4 will go up now. Step 4 is the individuated being. He transcends the Sigma male archetype. Okay, he's integrated it. He lives authentically, participating meaningful in both personal and collective realities. He achieves psychological wholeness by integrating the shadow archetypes and linking with the self via the ego self-axis. Rosarium Philosophorum Picture 5 now goes up. In the events of failure in this endeavor, and due to possible hitherto weak ego defense mechanisms that he will learn to put in place, the system short circuits, and he may start at the first step again, sometimes rejecting his own progresses, but the weight and burden of the release that individuation will give him from his complexes and having experienced some degree of the power in the process will urge him back on the road to individuation once again, reviving the hitherto abandoned process once more. And this is hopefully, okay? And then Rosarium Philosophorum Picture 6 would correspond to him stopping in the process, okay? And there are 10 stelas, so the process could be revivified in other ways below Reserve Philosophorum Picture 6, but because let's just say that he's successful the whole way through, right? That would be picture number 5. And he's made it. And then also, too, we could look at picture number 10 as a mirror image of picture number 5 in the fact that he becomes the individuated being that picture number 10 shows, though. But we're just talking about taking two sides of this archetype or this pop culture type, if you will. One side, he's totally unaware of. One side, everyone's unaware of because they don't really think about that side of it, okay? And mirroring it to the side everybody knows, okay? So conclusion, final conclusion here. The Sigma male is a candidate for individuation. The Sigma male archetype represents an entry point to individuation. It emphasizes autonomy and independence. It also risks repression and the strengthening of psychological complexes if left unbalanced. Hopefully, though, if he engages with the shadow, integrating archetypal dynamics and cultivating the ego self-access, the Sigma male can evolve into an individuated being. This undertaking will allow the Sigma male to move beyond resistance to societal norms and embrace the higher dimensions of the psyche, achieving wholeness and authenticity, which is actually the antidote his soul longs for. And once again, too, there's Sigma women out there as well, though, too, so we could just put woman where I put Sigma male or Sigma female, if you will, you know? If this resonates with you, okay, consider where you are on this path. Are you still working in the realm of the shadow? Have you even gotten there? Or have you begun to explore the deeper archetypal connections that will guide you towards individuation? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Follow and subscribe if you haven't. And most definitely share this deep dive with another self-proclaimed Sigma male or even Sigma female. Okay? Let's keep talking and exploring the depths of the psyche together, and let's make leaps and bounds in individuation and make this life our best life, friends. Okay? And what I'll do in the description of the video is provide you with a really nice, memorable overview of what this video was about, and also I'll give you links to the books. That way you guys can start picking up the books and maybe start, making a move towards this. I personally am already on this path and still in a lot of ways resonate with the Sigma male archetype. I'm an INTJA, okay? So if you know anything about that personality type, you'll know it's like, okay, yeah, that vibes pretty well with that. You know what I mean? And if you knew anything about my past, you'd be like, oh wow, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I could see this dude being a Sigma male type. But nevertheless, adding Carl Gustav Jung's analytic psychology and a bunch of other symbol sets that I've studied, Kabbalah, if you will, alchemy, having studied a lot of that through Aleister Crowley's Kabbalah, which is rife with that, and adding Jung's understanding of alchemy to that system as well, it's really made my journey here a deeper journey and a more profitable journey in taking steps towards individuation. It's not really a one-time. It's not a one-time thing. To be straight up, it's a process that continues in a winding path. It's like a winding staircase. Once you think you've gotten to the top, oh, you're headed on the way back down. But if you were to look at it from above and really see it for what it is, it's circular. It's the path of wholeness. And it just continues to go on and go on. And as you continue to go on, you become more and more enlightened, more and more enriched, and more in balance, which is the key at the end of the day of this, is to balance the polarities within every portion of your personality, And the Sigma male archetype or pop culture type, need some balance in order for people to stop suffering, because a lot of you are. I know personally that I am, if I just think about the way that I was caused to look at women, the way that I was caused to look at life, society, and those around me, you know. Um, what this is saying is not to just hopelessly give yourself to the community, but what it's actually saying is um, to find some time for it, to find some time to try to integrate that side of yourself that is extremely lacking. Once again, have a good one. I've been up all night, all throughout the night. It's 9:49 a.m., so this is definitely a labor of love. Okay, if you guys want to send me a coffee at the end of this here, please send me a coffee. My Cash App information has been displayed throughout the whole video. Please share this video, like this video, etc. if it's been a help to you. Thanks once again.